Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's podcast. My name is Wayne Bennett. This is episode 77. We've got an ultra talent with us today, a guitar virtuoso, Beckley's own Dan Bailey. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Now, you grew up on Vance Drive, North Vance Drive.
That is correct.
And
you've done your homework.
And your brother, tell us a little bit about your early life.
Well, my brother Gary is not quite a year older than I am. We're 11 months and 5 days apart. Irish twins, they call that, if you're born in the same year. We were born in Beckley, and we moved to Mullins and moved back to Beckley when I was going into the third grade. You know, we played sports. We were into baseball mostly. Soccer didn't exist back then, and all the opportunities that kids get into these days were really not existent at that point. You played baseball, and if you were older, you played football. But baseball was something that was available to all young people because we lived, like you say, on Vance Drive. It was just right up from the Little League fields. So we'd go down there, and we played during the summer. And you know, when you play every day, it's just fun. You get pretty good at it, you know. And so when I played Little League, when I actually got into the organized leagues, I found I was pretty good, you know. And I pitched and played third base, first base some.
Who did you play for in Babe Ruth? I remember.
Babe Ruth was Silverbrand.
Chubby Hughes.
Chubby Hughes, I remember when he came on the scene, he was this little guy, one of the few African Americans that played at that time in the league. And he came on the scene. He was just this little guy, but he could throw the baseball so hard,
I know.
You know. And I was talking to Jerry Underwood at our class reunion like a month and a half ago or something like that. And he said there were only two pitchers in Babe Ruth I didn't want to face, and that was you and Chubby Hughes.
Well, now, Gene Gilkerson played on that team. Who was the coach? Was his dad the coach?
His dad was the coach, yeah. His dad was the coach. Now, as we dig through this stuff, there might be names that I forget, so you can't hold that against me.
Well, I know I came up the same time as Chubby did. Actually, we grew up together and went to school together. And I know John Wooten and Dale Tabor and some of those guys played on, and Silverbrand had pretty good ball clubs.
Now, Dale was the catcher.
Yeah.
And I remember pitching to Dale most of the time. You know, when I pitched there, I liked Dale. We were good friends. I haven't seen him in years and years.
He passed away.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, didn't you play a little basketball too in grade school?
In grade school, I played for Lincoln School, and I actually made all tournament when I was in the sixth grade. But
Mr. Hall, your coach?
Mr. Hall. Yep, that was it. And I played basketball through the eighth grade. And once I got to Beckley Junior High, Jim McNish was the coach, and he was a nice fella. He was the geography teacher there, a nice fella. He lived over on Mankin, I believe. But, you know, once I started playing guitar, man, in basketball, there's just too much running.
Wasn't there?
Too much running.
Now, the neighborhood you lived in, I mean, Charlie Kirk lived beside of you, and up the road to Preacher Schaefer, and over on Wood Street, you had the Atkinsons. And
Now, Preacher Schaefer's house up there on the corner of Vance Drive and Marshall Avenue, that's what it is, used to be my grandparents' house.
Oh.
So my grandfather, Claude Sr., lived there, my grandmother.
Now, your dad was had a garage, and
well, he had a garage later on. He worked at in Mullins for years when I was younger, and then he didn't get he owned the garage, which was behind the house, you know, the whole time. But he was always kind of afraid to go into business for himself, and it wasn't until he was older and we were practically grown that he actually decided to go into business for himself.
Oh, okay. Now, you had a younger brother, too.
Yeah. David.
David. And now, when did you actually pick up the guitar?
When I was in the 7th grade. It was around March of my 7th grade year, I remember. And I just liked the idea. I found an old guitar in my grandmother's closet that it had belonged to my Uncle Jack. And he played guitar, and I remember seeing him when I was younger. And I was fascinated with it, and I found the guitar there, and I got some strings for it. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what kind of shape it was in or anything. It was probably in terrible shape. And I sent away for a Sears guitar course. I remember this guy named Don Rainey. You had the record that you put on. It was a big platter, and you put on, and he's talking to you, and you have your charts that were part of the course, and you learned to play some chords. And I was just taken with it. I was just taken with the sounds and the beauty of just string vibrating on that wood body and the tone of it all. And after I did the basic course, which was several months long, I got the advanced course and started in it. But kind of a funny story. I remember we went back to, I'd been playing the guitar maybe about a year or more. And we went to visit some friends in Mullins. And Rob and Catherine Carr. And Rob was a guitar player. Of course, he was a friend of my dad's. And I took my guitar, and he took it, and he's fooling with the tuners. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm tuning it." Well, I thought it was in tune. So that was a shock. But little by little, my brother had an interest in music, and he played he had a mandolin, then he got harmonica. And we were the head of the regular Baptist church youth group, because he would play harmonica and I would play the guitar, and we were fairly close in tune. We sounded pretty good. And so we played for folks there.
Did he continue playing music after?
He switched over to banjo and started playing some of that, but he became a doctor and didn't have any time for that stuff.
Now, your younger brother, didn't he play high school basketball?
He did. Now, my younger brother, David, was quite a good basketball player.
Yeah.
And he still keeps up with basketball quite a bit. He watches pro and college games, and he's telling me all about it.
Well, what was the first band that you played in?
Probably the Marauders. That was the first band when I was in the 9th grade. And that was with Steve and Mike George. And Tom Howen played the guitar, too. He played rhythm guitar. I played lead guitar.
Uh-huh.
And Bill Blankenship sang.
I remember Bill.
Yeah.
Did you guys become the sole set there later?
Well, that was a little later on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. After I'd been playing for a while, I got over to Woodrow, and I met some other people. I met Bill Kent and Jane Keeney, and they had a band. They were wanting to get a band, so we kind of had a disagreement. The funny thing is, when you're that age, if you're playing, the mindset at the time was, if you're playing in one band, you're playing in one band. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, I play in 3 bands right now, and it's fine. Sometimes you occasionally have a problem where you're booked where both bands are playing at the same time, but it doesn't really happen that often. But at the time back in high school, if you've sworn to one band,
that was it.
That's it. You're not going to date anybody else.
Now, I know you during your high school career, you started teaching some lessons at the Y.
Well, how that started was I was up at Jan Campbell, a music store uptown, and I was playing in there one day, and Jan came back and asked me if I ever taught guitar. And I was in high school. I was about a junior or something like that. And I said, well, no, and he wanted me to start teaching there. So that was when I first started to teach. And then later at the Y, I taught classes. Guitar classes are, kind of, sort of chaotic at best. If you can get everybody in tune and get them to shut up and listen to you, then that's good. That's a good way to start.
Now, when the band, the Soul Set, that was when you were in high school, right?
That was more like senior year in high school.
Okay.
So I played with, I can't even remember the name of the band, with Bill Kent and Jane. Steve George joined us, and Mike too. And I can't even remember what we called ourselves. But we recorded a record in Pittsburgh when I was a junior. And that was pretty cool. We had a good time with that. We went up and stayed at the Hilton and went to a big recording studio up there. And it was played, I think, in Beckley, Huntington, and Charleston. It was, I remember the feeling going into Flynn's over in East Beckley when I started playing with the guys over there, the Soul Set and stuff like that. I remember going in one time and hearing this song playing and say, "What's that?" And I realized that it was me playing on the radio, which is pretty cool. It was a pretty cool feel.
Well, Beckley it was kind of an eclectic area. A little later, you had a group from Oak Hill called the Evil Incorporated.
That was with Doug Gent.
But as far as a high school student, it's hard to, I guess you weren't allowed to play in clubs or anything, were you? Or?
Well, we did a couple times, and things were a little looser back then. There wasn't all this, correctness going on and stuff. So basically you did whatever you can get away with. And we got away with it a few times. But commonly in high school, we did not play clubs, no.
So there wasn't a lot of places to play. I mean, other than
school dances, but there were, the sub-deb clubs, and stuff like that. They would hold dances at the Y pretty much on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And they would actually play us. And whenever there were events, and I remember we played at the Dry Hill Community Center quite a bit. We'd play the Maxwell Hill Community Center sometimes. We'd play at the Y for the sub-deb clubs dances. And as we got older and better, we would actually go to different high schools and play their proms around. That's when, prom wouldn't think about having recorded music. They always had live bands.
Yeah.
And I remember how aghast I was when I first heard that proms were having DJs come in. What? What's that?
Yeah, it kind of wiped the live music out for a while. But you started playing. There was a group called the Fabulous Red Barons, and
right.
Mayor Pugh, later to be Mayor Pugh, and some of the guys you had, Beef Whitener, Phil Chouquette, Steve George,
Paul Ragland.
Right. Now, not all these guys play. I know John Shirey, Roger Hicks, George Campbell.
Well, see, Steve. Now, John Shirey was actually the bass player for the Red Barons. So. They were a class behind me in school.
That was a class I was in.
So I really liked those guys, and we were all friends. But I didn't actually play. My first gigs with them were probably the Battle of the Bands at the Armory.
Okay.
We did a Battle of the Bands that we won. We dressed up in these ridiculous suits.
I remember that.
They just picture your mother's craziest kitchen curtains and think of a bunch of guys on stage dressed up like that. Okay, that's what we looked like. But that was cool at the time. This was 1966, 67, 68, actually. That was the flower power kind of times there.
But during that era, bands dressed alike, and now just whatever.
Yeah, now it's just whatever. If you find a band that dresses alike, it's rare. They're not common.
But you guys, that same group, when Class 68 had their 20th anniversary reunion at the Black Knight. You guys got together and played in that. Yeah. And I can still remember Roger Hicks was playing the trumpet at that time. He could play anything, but he played Summertime or something. Oh, my gosh, it was unbelievable.
we had there was a couple years there where the Red Barons got together, and we played several jobs around Beckley and had a great time doing it. You know, we'd wear the white jackets and dress up like they did, and it was, it was fun.
Funny story, David Lyons, who was a singer, he was in my class, and he played football and through the shot put in track. And we'd go on these sports trips and say we were on a track meet, and David would sit in the back and sing. And I mean, the guy could sing. I mean, he was tough and loved to do it.
Singer. David was a good singer.
Yeah, I think he, after just these more recent years, I think he spent most of his time singing in church and stuff like that. But I don't haven't seen David in a long time. But
I haven't seen him since we did our last gig.
Yeah, I think y'all did one for the Chamber of Commerce dinner 2003 at the Armory. It might have been the last time you guys got
I don't remember. It's been a few years.
Yeah. Now, there was also Mark Houchins played a little bass for another group. I can't think of what the name. Dave was a guy named Dave Martin or something.
David Martin was a guitar player.
Yeah, he played little.
He was a friend.
Yeah, and wonder what happened to him.
David Martin, as far as I know, moved to Nashville. Dave became a piano technician, tuner.
Really?
And I think he sold pianos in Nashville for quite a while. And I haven't heard anything about him in years.
I don't know whether it was right in high school or right at the end of high school, but you got hooked up with Honey and the Rock playing.
Yeah,
that was a full-time job.
My summer was summer of '68 out there, and boy, what an eye opener that was. Theater people. Small town boy being exposed to all this stuff. But it was a lot of fun. It was a party every night, and we would do the shows, and it was just something that was just wonderful. I had a great time, and I remember that this is kind of funny at the time that, you're into this summer and the momentum and the fun and the camaraderie of everybody. And I remember the last show, just walking down to the little parking area there, behind the theater, and just crying, because all of a sudden it became apparent that it had all come to an end.
Yeah.
And you just never think about that, but it really was a lot of fun. And I did 6 different seasons out there.
Wow.
The last one was 1980, when I was married. I got married, and it was a little different then because my wife and I were dating, and so I got a steady gal, and but it was always fun.
Now, when you graduated from high school, when did you go to Berkeley School?
I went to Berkeley in the fall of '68.
Okay,
and I had been to Beckley College the year before. I went up to Berkeley. I had gotten married. I married Jane Keeney, who sang with the band that I was in high school. We dated through high school. And we were married for a year. But I went up there without her and came back after the first year. I was only up there a semester, really, but I was a sponge while I was there. I mean, I soaked up everything I could.
Now, did you have to audition to get in this?
Yeah, you had to send in some tapes and stuff of yourself playing. And when you go, there was a placement. There were slightly over 100 freshman guitar players when I went up there. And it was kind of a validating experience, because I found out that I was better than most of them. I could hold my own with the people that had come in there. So it was a good experience. And plus you learn, there were some things I really wanted to learn about music, some technical things, which I learned there.
Yeah.
Which were really good.
When did you get hooked? How old were you when you got hooked up with the Imperials?
That was when I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And we went to Cleveland that summer and played. We had won a Battle of the Bands somewhere, and we went to Cleveland and played for a couple months. And I was scuffling around with one of the guys in the band and fell on my shoulder and bent my collarbone. I was hurt, and I was away from home and had to call them to come and get me. And it was...
Now, Nelson Staples was
the singer, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was really amazed. I was really dismayed to find that he had died it's been about a year, I guess, now, or something like that.
I remember seeing you guys one time. Spider Turner was in town, and they were having him at the Armory, and I'd listen to some Spider Turner songs, Stand By Me, his version.
Was his big hit, yeah.
And you guys came out, and Nelson Staples bent the mic before Spider Turner and them came out, and they kind of ticked off the promoters or whatever. But
probably so.
It was kind of funny. But now then you ended up with a group out of Baltimore, Fran and her S-Girls.
Oh, that's now that was when I was like about 16.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this guy, his name was Tex. He was in Beckley. What had happened? I think they were traveling with a drummer, a bass player, and Tex played the accordion and sang some. And Fran, his wife, sang. That they were just a small group. And what I think the bass player had quit or gone home or something like that, and he just needed somebody to cover a few dates. So it was during the fair season, and they had a lot of work, and he was desperate. So I remember he came to my house and talked to my mother and convinced her to let me go out on the road with him for like a couple of weeks. And that was quite an experience.
You also one time, you studied a little bit with a WVU professor too, didn't you?
Thomas Canning, who was.
Now, did you learn at Berkeley, and did you learn to compose music, write music, or? Well,
a lot of that, a musician. I think anybody involved in the arts, You'll learn what you need to know to do what you do. But that's probably true with a lot of fields. If there's something you want to do, you learn what is required so that you're able to do it. But I learned some kind of composition at WVU, mostly there. But I wouldn't say that I've been a composer as such. I'm a songwriter. I've written several songs. I wrote one song that was number one on the independent charts, country music. And
what was the name of that?
It's called Quiet Kind of Crazy.
Oh, yeah, tailor-made.
Yeah, tailor-made.
Yeah.
Right. That was fun. We toured, and that's a whole nother show there.
Now, you mentioned getting married when you were real young. That was one of my questions for later. How does marriage, family life mix with musician's life?
It depends on the musician. It depends on the person. I mean, there's a stereotype, the guys are just out there and the girls are around them, and of course they're going to do whatever. And I think as a young boy, you can have that frame of mind, and that can be the case. Or when you meet the right person and you're a little older, you know that that's just all. That's not going to go anywhere.
So you have a family now?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy is my wife. She's from Pineville. We've been married for 42 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have three great kids, and so they're all grown, of course, now.
Was she involved with music at all herself?
She was a cheerleader. She was the head cheerleader at Pineville. And she was a homecoming queen down there and very well known and all that stuff. How she ended up with me, I have no idea. But
you didn't plan her homecoming dance, did you?
No.
Okay.
She's 6 years younger than I. And we met in Beckley. Went that little bar by the Elks Club. It was David Walker had a place in there. It was the Greenhouse was the restaurant, and the bar he called the Gunga Den.
I remember that.
And we met there. She used to come in there with her a friend, a guy that was just a friend, and I always thought they were dating. I thought she was neat. I liked her a lot, but I thought they were dating, and I kind of stayed away. And then I found out I left to go out of town, and she asked David, the owner, she said, "What's the story on Dan Bailey?" And made him promise not to say anything that she had asked. The first thing he did when I came back was say, "That Kathy girl's asking about you." and then it went on from there. Okay, so that's it on that.
Wow. Now, what about musicians' unions? I never knew too much about them.
There's never a union in Beckley. The closest one, well, the one that everybody joined was Local 136 in Charleston. And back at that time, a fellow named Ned Guthrie was in charge of the union down there, and he could be a real stinker. I mean, as a musician, you just want to play music.
Yeah.
You don't want to get involved in all this union and dues and politics and stuff. And practically speaking, for musicians playing bars and musicians playing clubs and dates, the union can't really do anything for you. And they never did. If somebody doesn't pay you, there's very little that they can do.
Yeah.
So we tried to shun them. It's, the union had a place, especially when in older times when every radio station would have an orchestra or a musical group. And this is the old days, know. And so there was a lot of live music being played on the radio in every town and stuff like that. So unions certainly had their place then. Once music started to be recorded, and it just became a different game entirely.
Yeah. Well, Dan, we're running out of time. Can I get you to come back, man? I'm
sure. This is
just
kind of
beginning.
Fun.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. This is kind of fun.
Well, I appreciate you coming by, and we'll resume this conversation. And anybody else out there would like to be on the show, give me email me at awbennett50@gmail.com. Love to have you. And remember, until then, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. And God bless you.